going live. And it says I'm live, which is what it did last time. Hey y'all, good evening. So Joseph's behind me. He's here to make sure I don't just talk to myself for 3 hours like I did last time. So hopefully y'all can see me. I'm even gonna type something in the chat. So last time it gave me all this. It said in stream and everything like it was working, and then it didn't work. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with me and YouTube, but it seems like it's working for right now, so that's good. So this is a makeup for yesterday's inking chill stream. I'm also recording this, so you know, it's always nice to have backup just in case. What I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with corrections on yesterday's page. So this is the page that I completed yesterday. If you're new to 4 comas, they are read vertically, so from top to bottom. And one of the reasons I like this format is because you don't spoil the joke. When we read from left to right, our eyes travel. And like with strip comics, like newspaper comics, you end up spoiling the joke. You know what's going to happen. With 4 coma comics, though, your eyes don't travel down as much, so you're less likely to spoil the joke, which is one of the reasons I really like this format for comedic storytelling. I also really like it because jokes are told in 4 beats. So setup, punchline, reaction. So the first 2 can be setup, and you can kind of vary it too. You can tell it in 4 panels, you can tell it in 8 panels, you can tell it in 16 panels, like you're going in beats of 4. So if you're a music-minded person, you might enjoy 4 coma as a format for you. So looking at my camera, it's looking a little bit dark. I'm gonna go ahead and just fix it so it's not so dark. Okay, that seems to be a little bit better. So anyway, this was penciled and inked yesterday, and the inks have had a chance to cure on the paper. So of course, when it comes to corrections, one of the first steps is to go ahead and erase your pencils before you go ahead and do your corrections. And don't worry, I am going to pencil and ink a page, but since this is a pretty important part of the process isn't really complete without it, I figured I'd go ahead and show you guys. So normally I would try to get my comic pages done earlier in the day. This is a little bit later than I would normally be working on comics, or I would normally try to be done by now, and that is because I spent a lot of today at the DMV. We've recently moved back to Louisiana, and you know, an important part of moving back somewhere is getting your license and your registration and all that handled. So Joseph was able to do it when we went earlier this week, and I was able to get my registration handled then. But there was something a little bit hinky about my license, so I had to call the main DMV for Louisiana in Baton Rouge and get that handled. So if you guys ever donate a car to Goodwill and they tell you they'll handle returning your returning your plate, don't believe them. Don't believe them. Do it yourself, cancel it yourself, don't trust them, because they won't. And you won't find out that they don't until 7 years later. At least that's what happened to me. Oh, thank you. But really, that wasn't what took the longest. I was only at the Hahnville DMV from like 1 until 3. Then we ran by Walmart, and then we went to the car wash, and just somehow it ended up being like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then if you're driving to Norco from Luling, that's actually a 40-minute drive. Oh, doggone it. Left a little bit of schmutz, so you want to be careful about that. Sometimes white vinyl erasers will leave a little bit of smudge. And I'm sorry, I keep hitting the mic. I know that has to be like a really annoying sound. So basically, my goal with these has been to get 2 4-panel strips done every day. Sorry, I'm just checking for graphite. I'm checking for eraser schmutz that kind of caked up on the ink, stuff like that. There's also a panel that I need to actually do the panel bottom on before I can do corrections. Can't hear music. Are you playing any? I am playing music. No, never mind. I thought I hit go. There we go. Now I'm playing music. Sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know though. It feels like it's just been like that kind of a day. So what'd y'all do today? Surely it had to be more interesting than riding around in a car for several hours and being at the DMV. Oh, let me see. You left on autofocus and it's going nuts. Okay, I can fix that. It is going nuts. I'm so sorry. Autofocus doesn't seem to like comic art very much. All right, there we go. Watch some Cartoon Crossroads. Usually that is a comic convention in Ohio, right? But this year they're doing it online. What's the best place to start when you want to learn how to draw? Whew, that's an excellent question. What I would recommend is starting with a baseline. So either you are already drawing stuff for fun or you're not. So I would suggest start by just drawing stuff for fun, and it can be anything you want to draw, and that's going to give you an idea of what you like about your art and what you want to improve with your art. And what's helpful is to even keep a list rather than like getting down on yourself when you like look at other artists and you think, oh gee, I wish I could do XYZ like so and so. Write that down and then do studies of their art in your sketchbook so you can kind of understand their thought process. I would also recommend drawing from life and drawing from reference a lot. And for me, having a system of understanding how things are made up, like volumetric construction or perspective, having like a mathematical system that I can turn to time and time again when I'm trying to draw things is really helpful because it creates a framework that I can hang all the details on. So what worked for me was studying Andrew Loomis and Glenn Vilppu. Those are 2 artists who have produced some really fantastic books. You can actually find a lot of Glenn Vilppu stuff on YouTube right now. He's still alive. He's done some work with Proko, Proko. They're also a really great reference. As for Andrew Loomis, he was an illustrator in the 40s and the 50s. He's long since passed. But your library will probably have some of his books available, and if not, you can request that they get them for you. I would recommend, oh gosh, he's got some really great books. Fun with the Pencil is a really good one, and Figure Drawing for All It's Worth is also a really good one. And no problem. All right, so I'm gonna go get a cup of clean water, and we'll get cracking with the corrections. And I'm using white gouache, which is like an opaque watercolor for my corrections. I'm also gonna adjust the camera, if it'll stay. Those of you with motion sickness, look away. I'll tell you when you can look again. I'm just trying to adjust it so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. Right now, my best advice for anybody who's interested in making art or wants to become an artist is to try and find ways to think about art, to think about your artistic journey, and to think about your artistic career that kind of reframe it so that you don't get discouraged. And I mention this because this is something that I struggle with, and I used to be a lot healthier about it because I often just saw everything as just like part of the learning process and part of the journey. And I think the longer you can think about your art that way, the healthier you're going to be and the better your relationship with your art and with your friends' art and with other artists' art will be. So I've added just a little bit of water to the white gouache, and I'm using it just to correct areas where it's maybe gone over. Let's see. No, this is not Inktober. I am not doing, or I'm not using the word Inktober this year. I am going to be doing an inked daily exercise called Lilliputian Living, and it's my 4th year doing that. But nope, no Inktober for me. This is just regular comic work for me, honestly. Although I probably will be buying Alfonso Dunn's 2 inking books, partially to compare them to some of the other inking books I have. I'm always on the lookout for art resources that explain things in a different way or genuinely do cover new material. However, you know, I have dozens, if not at this point about 100 different art books, and they do tend to cover the same ground over and over and over again. So I want to support his work, and I definitely do want more resources, and I'd like to improve my own inking, but I'm on the fence about it. Like, if I knew for a fact that it would be different from drawing with pen and ink or some of the other great inking texts, then I would definitely go ahead and buy it. Oh, cool beans. Well, it's good to hang out with you this afternoon while you're working on your comic too. Especially since a lot of us right now don't have access to like the social comic events. Those aren't necessarily safe for a lot of us. It's cool to be able to do that online. Any advice for someone who's starting out on comics and are kind of scared despite it being their passion? Okay, Oh boy, you asked the right question. I have lots of advice. You can take some of it with a grain of salt. First of all, I don't know that you ever get over being scared, okay? I have been doing comics since I was 13. I am crazy in love with the comic art form. It has broken my heart in a professional way so many times. It has been the source of some really bad depressive spells, but I still love comics. So I'm not telling you that to scare you. I'm telling you that because it's okay if you're scared. You can still get started if you're scared. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of fear. However, if you're doing comics for yourself, if you're doing comics because you love the art form, if you're doing comics because you've got a story you want to tell and you don't necessarily care if you do it professionally and you don't care if you can make a living from it and you're doing other things, then there's nothing to be afraid about. Comics is fantastic. The only thing to be afraid of in comics is when it starts becoming your career and, you know, you're trying to break in or you're trying to gain attention or you're trying to build up an audience. And even then, it's not so much like fear, it's just like anxiety and self-doubt and those kind of feelings, which if you have a healthy support group, if you have other artists who are encouraging you, if you have other people who like your work, it doesn't have to be that bad. So it's all about trying to find people who believe in what you do and you believing in your very core in what you do. And like a lot of people think that means they have to be telling like the most grandiose epic story ever. It doesn't mean that at all. Like look at the kind of stories that Studio Ghibli tells, right? They are generally, other than like Mononoke, they're not necessarily like these super epic grand stories, okay? Like Whisper of the Heart is not epic in that way at all. But there's a lot of emotion and heart and reality and passion and love there. And you can tell a comedic story. You can tell a gag comic with love and passion. It's just that your passion is for comedy. So finding that kind of like deep down root and core of what you love about comics and what you love about your comic and why your comic is special to you, that's going to keep you making comics even in the really dark times, even in the really bad times. All right, I have a cup of water off camera that I'm going to go dump so I don't spill it on today's page, and I'll be right back. So these are printed, let me fix my camera so that's not all catawampus. These are printed out blue lines. You can just barely see them. So what I'm going to do, what I normally do when I'm inking comics is I normally ink the whole page, and I normally pencil the whole page and then I ink it. Today I'm going to go panel by panel where I pencil it and then ink it, pencil it and then ink it, just to keep things kind of moving along. My other advice, if you're just starting out on comics, is that you focus on telling a shorter story first. Like, make a micro mini comic or make a 16 mini comic. It can even be a story from your bigger world. And the reason to start, there's a lot of good reasons to start with a mini comic. It gives you a track record of success. It's so much easier to complete 16 pages and have a finished project than it is to quote unquote complete your 1,000 page comic. And it also is going to kind of help you figure out your favorite work methods or what works for you or what doesn't work for you, but you're only tied to 16 pages. So if it doesn't work for you, you can just completely dismiss it and find something that you like better. Oh, so on this panel, her hair is actually, I can leave her hair like that for this, but I need to change it before she appears again because it's not recap accurate. But like starting something small and finishing it will give you a track record of success. You know, like you finish that comic. You can take it to shows, you can put it online, you can show other people and be able to point them to a finished product. My art needs a lot of work, but I started my webcomic since I had an idea for a story, and now I'm enjoying the whole process and watching myself get better, even if it's slowly. Yes! 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 Don't let your fear of comics or the anxiety that comes from getting started actually stop you from starting, okay? Almost every artist who, like, okay, if you're coming into comics from another art form, like there's a lot of animators who come into comics or a lot of illustrators who come into comics, like of course they're going to be good at drawing from the bat because they have this other art life. But if you don't have this like existing history with art, your comics are going to be kind of poorly drawn at first, and that's totally okay. Some of the most popular webcomics are literal stick figures. So that doesn't have to be a reason why you're not going to start your comic. I know so many people who are like, I'll start making comics once I'm good enough at drawing. But the thing is, your taste changes with your ability. So frankly, you may never feel like you're good enough because your ability to see the flaws in your work, no matter how good you are, your ability to see the flaws in your work is going to grow as you grow as an artist. So you may never deem yourself good enough. So don't wait until you feel like you're good enough. Also, drawing comics propels you to improve as an artist because as you're drawing comics, you're going to come across all these things you've never drawn before, and you're going to have to learn how to draw them. So it's a great way to kind of incentivize and guide your artistic practice because you're going to find all these things that you're going to be like, wow, I wish I could draw that better. Let me learn how to draw that better. And then if you're afraid of comics because you're afraid of how someone else is going to react to your comic, you don't have to share it with anybody if you don't want to. When I was younger, I was doing comics every day. Like I would do 4-coma comics every day, and I didn't show them to anybody because they were for me. So you can totally just make your own comics and never plan on sharing them with anybody. Hey Kelly, good afternoon. And I don't know why, but my nose is running so bad right now. Excuse me for a second. Don't want to be gross. I think there's something in the air that I'm a little allergic to. So what I'm working on today is kind of like a joke comic to recap the first volume of my existing comic. So my art style, my normal art style, looks pretty different from this. Yeah, I remember you. We met last week. Hey, Dawn, good evening. It's nice to see so many new and familiar faces around. So what I'm doing is, like I said, I printed up blue lines, which is like an underdrawing or a sketch, because I did this digitally at first. I printed up blue lines and now I'm penciling them. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of tightening up the art, making it a little bit easier for y'all to see since the blue lines don't really show up on camera. And I'm just using a plain old mechanical pencil. I'm using an H lead. That's a harder lead, so it's a lighter lead. And the reason I'm doing that is it's just easier to erase. And then I'm going to ink with brush pins, and I'm using Kuritake's Fudego Kochi brush pin for this, which I have many just laying around. And this has been printed and penciled on Strathmore's 300 series smooth bristles. So it is a heavier weight art paper that has a very smooth texture to it. So it's really good for inking with brush pens. And I'm going to use a scratch sheet of paper just to kind of protect the rest of the paper from like the oils on our hands and to keep the ink from smearing. So once I finish inking today's page, I think I'm going to try doing another Instagram live, and I'm going to ink today's Lilliputian Living illustration. And then once that's done, I'll draw tomorrow's. Got to keep the art train chugging along. What do I have to draw about in my comics? Well, generally my comics are about tiny people. So believe it or not, I end up drawing a lot of like houses, I draw a lot of animals, I draw a lot of flowers. I draw a lot of little things that we generally take for granted, but bigger. I also draw a lot of people. Actually, if you guys are interested in it, hey Allie, good evening! It's good to see you. If y'all are interested, you can check out my main comic at 7inchterra.com. And there's going to be a fresh update tomorrow. But I used to do a lot of comics for anthologies, like comic anthologies as well. And I also used to do a lot of comic freelance work. So really, I would be doing comics about whatever the anthology was about or whatever I was getting paid to do. So I've drawn all kinds of different things. And then I also teach like art classes as a secondary form of income. So I'm often drawing whatever my students want to learn how to draw. I like it though because it keeps me flexible. Like I'm always learning new things. Yes, I am planning on doing a live stream on Saturday. One of my friends makes custom handmade watercolors as a hobby, and she wanted to collaborate on a watercolor stream. She sent me a bunch of cool stuff that she's made herself, so I was going to demonstrate it for you guys, and she was going to kind of talk about the process of making watercolors. So we actually need to get together and talk about how we want to handle the camera situation, because this friend lives really far away. So we're going to be doing it either over like Discord or over Zoom, but I need to make sure OBS can handle that input. I also need to talk to said friend and see if like we need to make the time earlier because they're in another time zone. Pima, these are the Cara 4 comas. Once I finish inking this page, I actually need to get the Kickstarter blog update out to everybody. Kelly, I'll let you know on the community tab what time the live stream is on Saturday. I'm not sure, since I'm collaborating with a friend. I'm not sure if they're going to want to have it earlier because they're in a time zone that's an hour later than I am. So I want to kind of hash stuff out with them before I announce the time. Hey Tanner, good evening. So next week, I finally have an optometrist appointment, which means I may finally be getting new glasses, which means I may not have to like stop what I'm doing and then like get real in to read the stream. I'll just be able to read it, which would be amazing. Hey Tolly. It is a 4 coma style comic, yes. A really good example of 4 coma style comics would be Azumanga Daioh. I think many libraries that have a comic section carry it. It was a big inspiration to me when I was a younger comic artist. I do still like the artist's work, but his newer comic, Yotsuba, is a bigger favorite of mine. Oh, don't worry, it is probably not going to be at 4 in the afternoon. That's a little early for me. So in this panel, Naomi is a connoisseur of fine junk foods, enjoying un Cheeto. So what's y'all's favorite junk food? Or snack food? I've often wondered, going by, sorry guys, allergies are a pain. Oh gosh, sorry. Going by what Tanner is saying, I often wonder how many artists on YouTube are technically using blue lines and aren't disclosing that they're using blue lines, and you can't see them, so it's just like, I'm so amazing. But for me, it's such a wonderful art secret. Like, it's really helped so much. Like, I want everybody to know about it because I want it to be accessible to more people. Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I should have like always kept it a secret, and then people would like be more impressed with what I do. I'm like a magician's worst nightmare because I'm always like, oh, you see these doves? I had them in my sleeve the whole time. Hey, Indy. can I use Tombow brush pens for inking if you want thicker lines? Yeah, you can. The problem with the Tombow brush pens specifically is they are water-based. They are very water-based. So if you have sweaty hands or just like normal clammy hands, they will spread those inks all over the place. But you can use like a Pigma MB, which has a larger brush tip, or you can use like these are pigment based. So Pentel makes dye based brush pens and pigment based brush pens. I really like the pigment based brush pens, and they are able to cover a larger area. But I mean, you know, use what you got. Just keep in mind that it might smear, so you might want to work a little more slowly, give the ink plenty of time to dry, and work with like a blotter sheet of paper. Let's see. The Nichijo, sorry. Salty chips and cinnamon buns. Yeah. Yeah, there is a chip company down here. They're now owned by Utz, but they used to be Louisiana owned, called Zapp's. And Zapp's Cajun Craw Tater chips are seriously really, really good. I am a chocolate kind of person. So there's this like Japanese chocolate called Melty Kiss, and they make a strawberry flavored one, and those are really good too. Naomi is enjoying some Cheetos. And while I'm not a huge fan of Cheetos, the regular Cheetos myself, I used to have a little orange ginger Manx who looked like a Cheeto. So even though I don't necessarily like the taste of Cheetos, when I draw Cheetos in Kara, I'm always thinking about my cat Remy. Yeah, that's the company that makes the voodoo chips. And they make like two kinds of voodoo now. One of them is like, more mild, like more tomatoey. They kind of taste like jambalaya. I would totally eat chocolate covered Lay's potato chips. Regular Cheetos or Cheeto Puffs? Flamin' hot Cheetos is my vote. Am I allowed to vote for that? Ritz crackers. Ritz crackers with like Gouda cheese. A+. Although Triscuits makes these like different flavored Triscuits. I mean, they've always done that, but like now they have like balsamic flavored Triscuits, which are really, really good. Hi, Ashley. I am actually not a fan of Cape comics. I am a big manga person personally. Oh gosh, if I had to pick, that's difficult because it basically boils down to, do you like Catwoman better or Spider-Man better? Because those are the capes that I like the best from both of those titles. And I guess I'd have to say Catwoman. So I guess I like DC better. Also, Batman the Animated Series is still great. And if you've never watched it, I highly recommend you do. Wouldn't chocolate covered Lays stick together? Only down here, probably. Like where they would all melt together. can I do a tutorial on how to make your own manga? I got you. I got you. So I actually have several playlists of like how to make comics. So give me 1 second. Hey Joseph, are you like too busy to grab playlists? Like, I can grab them. These are actually two comic practice processes. Intro to comic craft and thank you. All right, Joseph's gonna go grab links for some of those playlists. Do I like Disney? I do like Disney. I like Disney Renaissance Disney a lot, so they're 2D animation. I've always been a really big fan of kind of like their house art style. I like big eyes and I like animals, so you know. I guess the answer is yes, I like Disney. Okay, so tomorrow, after the ink has had kind of a chance to cure on the paper, I'm going to erase all the pencil lines and then I'm going to make corrections. So there's areas, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's areas here where I'm like, I'd like to thin that line out a little bit, or it's a little wobbly for my taste. But, you know, a big part of like being cool with your art is also knowing how to fix your mistakes. Because it gives you confidence that you can make it look like what you want it to look like. Now see, so these have gotten a little blobby in the heat, which means they put out too much ink on the paper. And I just ran my hand in some of that ink and basically printed it over. Now that's really easy to fix, but that's something I want to look out for, and it's one of the reasons I'm using kind of a blotter sheet to protect my art so I don't have to make like a million unnecessary fixes. And Joseph is dropping some playlists that I've done of comic, like how to make comics, different comic processes, different comic tutorials. So if you're interested in making your own manga and comics, you ought to check those out. The latest one is comic prep and process, and it also includes some watercolor tutorials if you want to do watercolor comics. Cheetos. Oh, Chicago mix. That's good for like if you want a little taste of everything. I do. Hema asked if I usually print out my blue lines. I do. Although sometimes, give me a sec. Let me finish this line. So if I'm like doing a convention commission, or if I'm sketching in my sketchbook, or if no part of my process was done on a computer, I will use, let me see if I've got any handy. Close enough. Okay, so I'll use like non-photo blue lead, so very, very light blue lead, or like for my October inkings, I've been doing them in pink lead. And the cool thing about the pink lead, well, most of the leads are water soluble, so you can marker over them or watercolor over them, and they kind of dissolve into it, and then you can ink on top if you want to. So Ashley, well, okay, Joseph said I should be showing off my artist bridge. All right, I will. The problem is with the artist bridge is it does cover a lot of the paper, and it does, like, it's great for watercolor, but it's, see how much further I'd have to hold my pen to get it close to the art. So, you know, it's not perfect. I don't know how calligraphers manage to do it, because you still got quite a bit of a gap between the paper. But if you're painting, it can be great for large areas, so you don't have to rest your hand on the paper itself. And Ashley asked, what are my favorite mangas? And it really kind of depends on what I'm reading at the time. So I'm currently reading Golden Kamuy, which is a little violent, but is also great, and the art's beautiful. And it's, gosh, so it's about this soldier who had fought in the Sino-Russian War, and the war's over now, and he's just kind of wandering around, and he has this nickname of like Immortal Kamuy, like no one can kill him. And he meets up with this Ainu girl, and they just kind of form this bond over mutual respect and eating all the things. But they're also looking for her dad, and they're looking for this like legendary treasure. So that's pretty great. I also like the manga Hakume and Mikochi, which is about tiny people and talking animals, and it's very cute, and I highly recommend it to anybody who likes tiny people and cute animals. And what else am I reading? I was reading a side character's love story in Watakoi, and a side character's love story has new volumes out, so I do need to catch up. But I'm caught up on Watakoi in English, so I'm waiting for more to be translated. But, oh man, also To Your Eternity is fantastic, and The Promised Neverland is also really good. But I think my all-time favorite is probably Yotsuba, which is by that artist I was talking about earlier, Kiyohiko Izuma, and it's about this adorable little kid kind of exploring the world, and it just captures like humor and this sense of wonder, and it just kind of makes you appreciate everyday life. And that's the kind of comics I enjoy making too, so it makes sense that I would really like Yotsuba. Hey Trissa, good evening. Watakoi's 4th English volume comes out this month. Yeah, I don't know why Watakoi, like, aren't they on volume 6 in Japan? It is so slow to get new volumes here. It's like Yotsuba. They're like 3 volumes ahead of us. I don't know if they think there isn't demand or what. The anime for Watakoi is really cute too, if you're more of an anime person. It was a good adaptation. One could probably make your own chocolate covered Lay's potato chips, especially if you're good at tempering chocolate. You could probably do it. I am terrible at candy making, so I would rather just eat them already made. I'm not a baker. I don't, I'll cook, but I don't necessarily spend a lot of time in the kitchen like some people do. Like I know, with quarantine, some people are like discovering this love of like baking. I don't have any love of baking. I don't even like baked goods that much, so there's nothing to draw me in there. And thank you, Ashley. And not at all. You're very welcome, Teresa. Sorry, let me get comfortable. Alright, so we've got a bit of a background in this one. It's going to take me a little bit longer. And I'm just happy to be able to share some of my comic process with you guys in real time. Sometimes making comics gets really lonely because so much of it is like head down, you're drawing. Often you're at home by yourself. Like right now I'm at a desk that faces a wall. And my computer is really the only outlet to other people I have when I'm working at comics on my desk. So being able to stream it and hang out with other people and talk about comics and talk about junk food and like know that other people are working on their stuff right now too, it just makes me feel less alone, you know, like I'm connected and I'm part of a community. And like to me, making comics is about communicating things with people, you know, being able to express thoughts or feelings in a story form that I wouldn't necessarily be able to convey if it weren't with pictures, or it wouldn't be as powerful as if I was just telling people. So, you know, being able to be social while working on comics is really nice. Tali asked if I'm going to watch Yashahime. You know, I've been wondering if I was going to because I really like Rumiko Takahashi's art. I like her art style, and I know someone else is working on it, but I know she did the character designs. My problem is with her comics and her anime, they tend to go on forever. And Inuyasha went on forever. And I just do not have a forever amount of interest to devote. Like I was reading Rini, which is, I guess it's one of her more recent manga. I'm sure it has an anime adaptation, but it's not like particularly popular in the US. And it's about, gee whiz, is he a ghost or is he a demon? Or I forgot what he is. But, you know, it's a slightly different dynamic from her normal dynamic. The main characters don't hate each other from the get-go. They're friends or friendly. And it's good, but I keep, like, falling off from reading it. And like, if the library doesn't have it, I don't go out of my way to go find it, you know? Yet I loved Rama One Half when I was in high school, and I think I really like Rumic Theater, which is her short stories, and I enjoyed Mason Okoku, so like I like her art, and I like her storytelling, and I like her characters, but when they drag out forever, I lose interest. So I don't know, I kind of want to see where it's going in terms of like, is it going to be this super long series or is it going to be like condensed? I can't draw lines that aren't wobbly. I feel you. As you can see with the like from my sketch, I'm usually doing multiples of the same line. So they're my version of wobbly. I have shaky hands as well, and I've heard that shaky hands is like a common thing. Like hand tremors and fidgets are common for people with ADHD. I'm not speaking for you. I'm just speaking for myself. And it's always been a problem for me. Like my calligraphy looks terrible because my hands shake. So for me, it's not about trying to like solve it 100%. It's about trying to find art styles that either kind of embrace the shaky or are very, very simple and fairly easy to execute, or I can correct the shakiness out. I know there are some digital art programs that have stabilizers like Clip Studio Paint. You can install a stabilizer and it'll smooth out some of your lines. But for me, that's why I don't do like more detailed art, honestly, is because the hand tremors start acting up and will ruin something that I've spent a lot of time on. Sorry. And that's also why when I'm making comics, I do multiple stages, like discrete stages. So I very rarely, for something bigger like this, I'm very rarely working on the only original I have or the only copy I have. I usually have like digital sketches, or I scan it in between just in case my hands betray me or my cat knocks paint or ink all over the place, you know? Which is kind of limiting because I feel like I can't do some of the stuff other YouTubers are able to do. I need more stages, or I need more time, or I can't work as quick as they can. But in the end, it's really all about finding the accommodations that allow you to be able to work at all. It was good hanging out with you. Espino, nice to meet you. I am glad you were very productive on your page. That's awesome. I hope to see you again, and good luck with your comic. Hima's Pika treats are very, very cute. Do I like Pokemon? That's a dangerous question. I like Pokemon in theory. Like, I like the designs and I like the world, but I don't like using in the games. I don't like using animals to fight other animals. So I can't really get into the games. But I like the anime is not like that. And when I was younger, I used to watch the anime, and I know the manga is not really like that either. So in theory, I like Pokemon a lot. In practice, I'm still waiting for a Pokemon game that's basically just Tamagotchi, where you raise adorable Pokemon. Shinigami, thank you. I forgot what he was exactly. Yeah, little Lord of Death. I mean, I like their relationship. I like that they're friends. I like that they don't hate each other. Um, I was the person who shipped Akane with Ryoga, knowing full well that it was never going to happen. But I just liked Ryoga as a person better than I liked Ranma. Because Ranma just kind of acted like he hated her, even though she was a very capable person. Whereas Ryoga kind of worshipped the ground he worked. Now, to be fair, he was like totally a creep by pretending to be a pig and just a pig during certain times. But, you know, I still liked him as a person better than I liked Ranma. And I liked Ranma himself okay, or themselves. I liked Ranma themselves okay. It was just like, it wasn't a relationship that made me happy to read because of all the bickering and all of the pretending to hate each other when they actually care about each other a lot. I was never that kind of a teenager. Like, if I cared about somebody, I told them. So for me, me personally, it wasn't identifiable. And then kind of the same thing with Inuyasha. See, I could be down for just taking pictures of adorable Pokems. That's probably when I'm going to jump back on the Pokemon train. I like drawing them. I like thinking about them as pets. I like thinking about them as like service animals. Okay, this pen is so leaky. Please don't be leaky. Got to play the original in 64. I never ended up buying it. We're gonna have to buy it when it comes out on the Switch. You have to snap those Pokemons. Oh, this one's so much better. Oh, thank you. I love the Fudego Kochi when it's not like dripping ink all over my paper. So with ink in comics, when I make a mistake, like there's things about that pillow I want to fix. I just gotta wait until the next day, let it dry, and then come back to it. And you know, sometimes by the next day, you don't even notice those mistakes anymore. You're just like, it's okay. I mean, you got to keep in mind that with comics, most panels, people are going to be looking at them for like 20 seconds max. Some people go back and read comics for the art, but like your average comic reader is not going to be spending, you know, the 20 minutes it took you to draw that panel. They're not going to be spending that 20 minutes looking at the panel. So glad we managed to get the stream running correctly this time. I feel so bad about that cricket stream that apparently was unlisted and didn't go live. Every time YouTube changes stuff, it always takes me a long time to learn the new thing. Oh my gosh, what a cute game, Pokemon Ranger. That sounds awesome. So in a way, brush pens, when you finally get used to them, are really good for heavy-handed people because it kind of trains you out of being so heavy-handed. I mean, I still have a death grip, but I'm not putting all that pressure on the paper. Man, I'm hungry too, though. All I had was a smoothie for lunch today. Another thing to keep in mind too is like art in general, even simple art like this takes time. Like, how long has this stream been going? Whew, a little over an hour, and we're 3 panels in. And some of that is, you know, me like reading the chat and stuff, but it still takes time. So be patient with yourself. Don't rush it. Oh, I don't know. It's a hard life when your ship marries other people. Your OTP. So when I finish these 4 panels, it is going to be time for a hydration break, bathroom break, stretch break, and that means I recommend everybody go get something to drink, some water or something. Take a minute and stretch, crack your back, stretch your hands, go use the bathroom. Even if you're working on your own stuff, take a minute to take a break. Naomi's comfort is making me sleepy. I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I want to go take a nap. If you're just hanging out, maybe go get a snack. I mean, you're totally welcome to do that right now. I'm not going to tattle on you. But I'm going to take a bathroom hydration stretch break when I finish these 4 panels. Squishy comforter. Squishy donuts. Do some anime style calisthenics. A 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2, and then I present my stamp card. Stamp it, senpai. I'm so impressed that I've managed to mostly be on camera. You guys don't know how hard it is for me to be on camera, like to keep the camera on what I'm doing. Sometimes it just runs away from me. Now what is sticky on my hand? Oh, I got schmutz on Naomi's face. That's something I don't like about this. Let's see if I can gently coerce it off. Oh my gosh, of course there is. Maybe I should so with my new phone I can set routines. And I should probably set a wake up routine that's actually healthy and not drink coffee as quickly as possible. Today is going to be a long day because I still got to do my not Inktober stuff. Inktober. Ink under. I've been trying to think of like other months where you could just put ink in the name and just declare it, you know, the month of Inkenings. But I had decided I was about done using that name last year. What are 4 style comic used for? To tell a joke? Yes, they are usually used for comedic storytelling. Do I have a boy? Do you mean... well, my cat's not in here, but I have a boy cat who I refer to as my boy, and I have a husband. I took off the ring because it's a little bulky, and it makes it hard for me to do art, so I just set it over to the side. But I am married, so I don't know, Joseph, do I have you? There's a boy I like, I'll say that. Nope, I don't have him. He just said so. He's free range. He just wanders around in the backyard and feeds himself. To fix that later as well. Yeah, that's right. Only catch is that you have to keep it on for it to work. Oh wait, okay, hold on. Set your own songs or playlists as alarms, and it starts quiet and increases the volume slowly. I feel like if it's music, I will sleep through music. So it has to be annoying and an alarm. But like, it's not just alarms that I'm talking about. I'm talking about like, you know, once it figures out I'm out of bed, to be like, you should do some stretches. Here's some stretching exercises. And like, I know there's stuff like that exists and I can pay for it, but it is so hard for me to keep habits. So I don't want to like spend money on this habit software or habit app and then like not use it. What do you call a person who does not feed a cat? They don't have a cat anymore usually. Although I think that might be a joke, so I'm hoping there's a pun. I can't read, that's why I said, huh. I don't know, what do you call a person who doesn't feed a cat? My cat Bowie would say that's what he calls his owners because we don't feed him when he wants us to feed him. And he's hungry all the time. All right, one panel away from bathroom break. Yay! Oh man, I'm sorry it died. I don't know why it won't let you do that. That does seem like a very helpful feature. I know what you mean. I start to develop an aversion if if I set a song as a ringtone for someone who used to be a friend and then we have a falling out, it gives me and then they call me, it gives me like an aversion to that song. Oh. Yeah, that's not an important line. I don't have to draw that. If he legitimately doesn't feed his cat, I know cats will kind of lie about not being fed, but if he really isn't feeding his cat, you can call animal services and just report that he's neglecting his animal and they'll come investigate it. I mean, I hesitate to tell you what to do in this instance because my own cat he is fed. He is on a diet as given to him by the vet, and he would claim he is not ever fed. So I know cats do have a tendency to act like they've never been fed, but like if he's like legit not being fed, then you or a parent ought to call animal services and let them know. And that way the cat can go live with somebody who can actually take care of him. I don't know. Fizzy is kind of getting burnt out on me. Like it's starting to give me that panic response. So I need to change my ringtone to something else. Something I don't mind sacrificing. Oh, he wants to eat all the time. He started on kitty cat anxiety meds and it makes him hungry all the time. So he wants to be fed forever. But we bought him a puzzle feeder and there's always like a snack in there. So his behavior is he's quit nagging so much for food. I think he thought he was hungry all the time because he's bored. I'm definitely going to have to eat dinner before I do the Inktober piece. Not Inktober. Not calling it that anymore. Dang it. Lilliputian Living Piece. Oh, I love my boy. He's in another room right now, otherwise I'd show him to you. He's my familiar. know, Hema, if it keeps up, you probably ought to talk to a doctor about it. You and I both love food, so it's always sad and a little weird when we don't want to eat. Like, that is not normal for us. I would totally, yep, that would be me. My adorable dumb familiar. He's a good, Ginger's a good familiar. A big fluffy pumpkin cat. When stuff's wrong with Bo, like earlier this year, he had kind of high liver values, but that was because he had a gallbladder infection, and once that cleared up, his liver values went back to normal. But it worries me more than if there's stuff wrong with me. I mean, part of that is because like they can do so much for humans in terms of medical science, and not necessarily so much for pets. That's kind of what I was thinking too, is that you're probably not getting as much fresh air and exercise due to quarantine. Ooh, inking is so soothing, but it's putting me to sleep even though I'm hungry. I probably should have taken a nap when I got home, but I was afraid of the day just like totally getting away from me. But after I've been driving for a few hours, like I always feel like my brain's kind of scrambled. Cryptid house goblin. A rare sight in these woods. If y'all are into cryptids, by the way, Trey the Explainer on YouTube has a good YouTube channel for that. You can just kind of listen to it like it's a podcast if you want. I'll put it on sometimes when I'm working. I'm not like I used to be pretty into cryptids. I'm not like super into cryptids anymore, but mostly that's just because like my younger brother is into the Ancient Alien show. Like he thinks it's bogus, but he still, anytime I'm over visiting, that's what's on TV. And like the hunt for Bigfoot and all that kind of stuff. And I guess like I find it boring because it's like overexposure. I want to point out that my posture in this is terrible. Like, please do not imitate my hunching over the desk when you're working on your own stuff, if possible. The comic artist hunch is not something you want to aspire to. My excuse is that my eyesight's really poor. Extensive schedule for myself. Man, I feel that. Keeping up. Yeah, like, it's like one thing to like decide to yourself like, oh, I'm gonna start this new habit, and to know in your head like this is a really good and healthy habit, it's gonna make my life so much better, and then to actually be able to maintain it long term is so challenging. I'm not at all. Oh man, I goofed that. Oh well, that's okay. I goof trooped. Not even gonna worry about it. Like, I used to be really good at sticking to my planner and sticking to, if I set a routine in my planner, to sticking to that. And like, since we've moved here, I've not been able to do, not really been keeping up with it. But it was a huge lifesaver when I was doing the Kickstarter because there was so much to do. So I was able to like write it all down as a checklist and then break it down into individual days. And then track which days I was actually getting everything done. I haven't left the premises of my front lawn since March, except to move up to the apartment that one day. Are you doing online classes right now? I thought you were like, I thought you had in-person classes too. Would you be able to like go for a walk around the block? Because you could do that and listen to music, and that way you'd get some fresh air and your brain would get some necessary stimulation, but you wouldn't necessarily be putting yourself at risk or anything. Yeah, you might as well since you signed the lease. Plus, it gets you some breathing space, some room of your own. And especially if they're going to make you pay for it anyway since you signed the lease. Boy, there's a lot of goose I'm going to have to fix tomorrow, but that's alright. Po body's perfect. Okay, so after I do the spot black on Naomi's hair in this panel, I'm going to go take a bathroom break, a stretch break, a water break. And what time is it? It is 7:58 and I've still got 4 more panels to go. Man, oh man, oh man. Today got away from me. It seriously did. All I did was go to the DMV, go to Walmart to pick up some groceries, and then go through the car wash. And yet that managed to take from like 1 to 5 something. Crazy. My mind is still reeling, like how did I spend all that time doing those things? Okay. All right. Water break, bathroom break, stretch break. I'll see you guys in like 5 minutes. Let me put up the away. All right, let's finish the other half of this page. Hopefully this will be easier, but probably not. So when I was originally writing and drawing these, sketching them, I was doing 1 set of 4 per day, generally. But that's just because for me, like coming up with ideas is often more exhausting than refining ideas. So I didn't want this to drag out forever since this is supposed to go in volume 2 and we need to get that volume printed and sent out to folks. So I wanted to kind of speed up my process a bit. They're not going to be able to see that. So I decided to do double time and try to get a full page of inks done every day. And that's been working out pretty well so far. I'm a little concerned since for October I want to do an inked illustration for every day. So I will, until I finish these, and I only have 2 more, it looks like I only have 2 more days left, so not bad. But for the next couple days, it's definitely going to be a bit of a pinch trying to get everything done. It's okay. You can endure anything for a bottleneck amount of time, a small amount of time. That's so what Hema mentioned about people still partying it up, that was the problem in Nashville too. Like as we were moving out of Nashville, college was starting up and Vanderbilt was already starting in with the party scene. So I was quite glad to be out of there when we were out of there. I definitely do miss Allie and Tanner, and I miss Jerry's Artorama, and I miss Plaza, but I am not going to miss people taking stupid risks and partying when they need to not be partying. I mean, if you're going to school, I respect that choice, you know? Like, we all are trying to make the best choices we can right now with what we have available. You know, there's some people like on Twitter who give someone a hard time for working right now, and some of us don't have a choice. So I'm not gonna judge somebody else. You know, I have a learning disability, and I would not do well with distance learning the way they're doing it. So I respect that that's not always an option, you know. But it also means, you know, we don't take unnecessary chances. We wear our masks, we wash our hands, you know, stuff like that. So it's really frustrating to me that some people are still partying and stuff. I guess they don't think it's going to hurt them or it's going to affect them or anybody they care about. Because I can't imagine doing that if there were people. Hey Dawn, good evening. I can't imagine doing that if there were people you loved who might be at risk from that. I think one of the things I personally miss the most is in-person, like going and teaching in-person art classes, because I really enjoyed that. But, you know, I'm already talking to the St. Charles Parish Public Library about doing some digital classes again, so that makes me happy. I really like teaching because it is always an opportunity for me to learn as well. And, you know, especially when I teach older people, I get students who have even younger students have things to show me and things I can learn from them. But I also learn a lot from my older students. So it's a very rewarding, the teaching aspect, you know, not everything about teaching is rewarding. politics, bureaucracy, coming up with all your own materials and paying for them, you know, not the fun part. But like in general, the meat of teaching is really rewarding. And I miss, oh, it sounds like Bowie got some dinner. I hear our neutro opening. And I miss that. I miss that like give and take. And like I would like to offer private online classes. However, that requires a lot of structure and framework. And right now I like working under somebody who already has that structure and framework figured out. So all I have to worry about is creating the classes. I don't have to worry about like, you know, how are we going to promote the classes, or how are we going to handle the people who show up and stuff like that, all of the administration and logistics. I like working with other people who handle that for me. Hi, Weblight Dreams. Good evening. Which is why, even though I've talked about doing like a Skillshare class for years, I never really got to it. So now we are just over the halfway mark for this page of 4 Coma Comics. Oh, thank you. That's a little bit, my lines being clean is a little bit deceptive because I actually have blue lines printed underneath where all the sketchiness is. So all I'm really doing right now is I'm tightening it up with a pencil and then inking over it. So I've got a tool in my pocket that kind of helps with the clean lines. And then I'm also using a specific kind of brush pen that I find it works really well for me for getting clean lines. Do I use instructional comics for teaching a child with special needs or no? So the kinds of I teach art classes, and while I do sometimes have students with special needs, I find that art is really not, so I teach art privately usually, so we're not worrying about grades, we're not worrying about anything like that, and I usually have smaller classes so I can frequently spend time working one-on-one with my students. I have made instructional comics before, mostly just to illustrate a technique or a point, but I find that many of my students benefit more from me using like creating a video to explain something a little bit more in depth outside of class, or spending additional time with them to better explain a topic. I do think comics can be a wonderful teaching tool. I'm just saying that I personally have used templates more than I've used comics as a teaching tool. Tanner said, I'm just glad we live in an age where we can still see one another so far away. Yeah, me too. Like, remember in like 2001 when webcams were like, you might get like one refresh a minute, and that was if you were lucky and could even get a connection? I mean, yeah, there's like a lot of pros and cons to this particular time because this is going on into a different subtopic. But I was talking about it on Twitter a bit where I do like the fact that we are able to stay connected online. Like, that's wonderful. I'm not arguing against that point. But so many job opportunities want everything to be online. So they no longer do in-person interviews, and they pull your resume from like Indeed, and it's based on like an algorithm looking for very specific words. So there's a lot of people who might have certain learning disabilities or who might be a great fit for them, but don't necessarily know how to game a resume or how to game a job search site, who would struggle in that kind of world and who would really benefit more from like in-person processes, right? So like I have never ever been hired for my resume. Never. I have an MFA in comics. I have 10 plus years of comic teaching experience. Never been hired for my resume. I've always been hired when I met someone in person at a show or at their store, and we actually had a chance to talk to one another. My resume, I guess, doesn't impress anybody. Or maybe it's because you can't necessarily see a lot of passion in my resume, and then you actually get to meet me, and you can see that I have a lot of love for this, and I really like this art form, and I want it to be something that is accessible to more people, because like you don't have to be good at drawing to make comics. Like I mentioned that earlier in the stream, but I really mean it, and it's something I tell my students. And some of my favorite comics are not, like, I hesitate to say this because I don't want it to come back to anybody that Becca Hilburn said so and so is not a good artist. Like, I didn't say that, but you know, some of my favorite comics are not what one would argue to be the most like technically proficient comics. My own comics are not the most technically proficient comics, and that's not the point of comics. The point of comics is like being able to convey an idea and to tell a story and to convey emotions. So if you can do that with stick figures, you just saved yourself a bunch of time. Webcams. I had a Tiger Electronics webcam, and that thing was such a joke if you could even get it to talk to the computer. I keep hoping LGR will like do an oddware or something about that specific one. My mom might still have it, so if I can find it, I might send it to him. But I was just thinking a lot the other day about how all of these like web applications, like it's opportunity, but it's like a false opportunity. Like DV Pit, for example, which is a developmental pitching event where you can win a critique. Like, it's a great idea, and I think I'm glad it exists, and I think it does kind of level the playing field, and it makes it easier for people who don't live in areas that typically have like an established publishing scene. It gives them a chance to work in that industry. But when we have that and then we don't have in-person events, or the in-person events are like 300 people in a room, then for people who might have certain learning disabilities or might have certain emotional disabilities or maybe just don't do super well online, you've just cut all of them out. And there isn't something that takes its place. Online job apps never got me a job. My only 2 jobs were one going into the text. Yeah. and then just email me later. If SLPs will make comics for working with clients, since comics do have a role in speech and language. You know, it's worth trying. It's worth pitching. Hey, Bowie. I think there's a lot of validity to using comics for that. I do know that there is some research that shows that children with autism really benefit from comics as part of their education, because comics are very useful for teaching like facial expression and cause and effect and emotional reactions, and that children who struggle with reading really benefit from comics, because unlike picture books, there's often a more direct relevancy between the text on the page and what's going on, and it's great for pre-readers because they can follow the story since there's more pictures in the story. However, I will also say that even though on paper comics are amazing, and I could make that argument all dang day long, when you're facing a librarian who hates comics and thinks they're trash, good luck convincing them otherwise. So it really kind of depends on the bias of the person you're talking to and pitching. But that doesn't make what you want to do not worthwhile and not legitimate. It just means you're going to have to do it in spite of them saying no. Like, you might have to make the comics and then show them the comics and explain why it would, because some people have just no imagination, and you can tell them something and they won't even be able to comprehend how it might be helpful until they actually see the thing, and then they're like, oh, okay. Oh, my mom dragged me into edible arrangements winter because they were hiring, and the manager saw me in my Pikachu gear and was like, OMG, my son will love this, and took a picture of me. So I've been going in for the holidays for that's cool. She likes how I arrange the strawberries on the tray after skewering them. And Weblight says, during my university class on comics, we centered them around helping with medical issues and such, so our subject had to be related to that. That's really cool. Yeah, please don't take me saying it depends on the person as me saying it's not worth doing or there's no value to it, because I 100% think there's value in it. I did my thesis on how, and this is before middle grade comics were really a thing or money was even being put into kidlit comics, but I did my master's thesis on how comics are great for early childhood literacy. I mean, honestly, sometimes even just seeing yourself or a representation of yourself in a story is valuable. In fact, I think often it's valuable. So, seeing a child who has speech difficulties, or a comic about a kid who's deaf or something, seeing that and seeing sign language shown in the comic, I think that has a lot of value too, because it can be very heartening for someone who feels very alone and feels like nobody really understands them, and they never see themselves in media, so they kind of feel like maybe they don't exist. To see themselves reflected in a positive way, or in a sympathetic way, or in a heartfelt, genuine way, where they're not just a side character and they're not the butt of the jokes, or they actually exist in the comic, I think that has a lot of value too. Yeah, the more ways people can find to present a topic, the more ways they can make it sticky to people whose brains might be neurodivergent, or people who need things taught to them in a different way, the better. I think there's lots of value in that. I know maybe I've just had bad experiences. People down in the South can be kind of reticent to try new things. So I mean, I guess that's people anywhere, but I've only ever lived in the South. So like maybe I've just had bad experiences, and that's not representative of the whole. And of course, you know, people do retire. The guard does change. When I first started, well, actually, when I published the first volume of 7-Inch Kara, I brought copies down to every branch of the St. Charles Parish Library to donate because it's set in St. Charles Parish and I'm from St. Charles Parish, and I thought they might like to have, you know, a copy of a book set in St. Charles Parish. Like I gave it to them for free. And I had a couple of friends who worked in the library, but they weren't librarians, they were assistants. And it basically came back to me like, your book got thrown away, I'm so sorry. Or I fished it out of the trash and I put it away until, you know, we can find someone who's more sympathetic to comics. Or, you know, it just sat on the head librarian's desk for 6 months. Do you want it back? And then in 2017, they hired a new teen librarian. Actually, it might have been their first teen librarian. And she was very comics sympathetic, very interested in comics. And everything basically changed for me regarding the St. Charles Parish Library after that. And now I teach classes with them. And there was a time when they would never have let me do that. I used to offer to do it for free. And I mean, I had that degree, and they wouldn't even give me the time of day because the person in charge didn't see any value in comics. So things change, people change, institutions change. And I like working with them a lot. Like anybody who watches the channel has probably heard me talk about doing stuff for the library before. I like working with them. But it took a lot of being stubborn and a lot of determination and a lot of patience and having a couple of friends who actually worked in that system for anything to change. Like I said, Lilliputians are apolitical in Kara. Yeah. Well, you know, it's my fantasy escapism world, and the Lilliputians don't use currency. They do trade in trade, like for like, when possible. At most, they'll keep like a script of transactions. They certainly wouldn't let somebody just starve. And there isn't really politics. You basically become an elder by living a really long time, not getting eaten by a cat, and just earning other people's respect by being a contributing member of the community. My professors who are SLPs from last semester liked my idea about a comic about a magician girl who's dyslexic, and every time she says a word, her wand breaks. Oh my gosh, that's a really cute idea. Are there Lilliputians living in the White House, or at least the Rose Garden? Well, probably, yeah. Or they would have been. Yeah, Ann Arbor is like an ideal. I've stolen so many ideas from Ann Arbor and pitched them to the library down here, I'm sure. They don't mind. A2CAF, their comics fest for it's Ann Arbor. Oh gosh, Hema would know. Hema could do the whole acronym. I cannot as a trespasser, but they're, yeah. A2CAF is awesome. That's a great library. It's a beautiful library. Pretty sure Jersey and Dan have been a big part of that. Ann Arbor is also very artsy in general. Yeah, Jersey moved to Ohio, so it'll be interesting to see what goes on with A2CAF. I was telling Joseph, I think it was Jersey's influence that got Gina Gagliano from Random House to come out and do portfolio reviews, which was a huge deal because a lot of publishers are no longer doing open portfolio reviews, and that kind of goes way back to the conversation about some people just don't look great online, don't test well. I mean, to have the opportunity to sit down and make a human connection with somebody and make eye contact and to like be able to read their facial expressions instead of, second guessing every other DM. I think both are valid. I just wish we weren't moving away from, and I mean, during COVID, crazy times. I mean, like not during COVID, in-person stuff was kind of starting to die out because it costs money to send people places and it costs time. But I feel like these companies ask so much of us. They want us to buy their books. They want us to support their existing artists. To me, I feel like if they really believe in comic community, they need to kind of pay that back by actually going to events. Hey, BJ Andrews, good evening. Yeah, I can imagine, man, if the St. Okay, I lived at the library as a kid, and if the St. Charles Parish Library had been as cool as the Ann Arbor Library, you would not have been able to get me out of the library. I would just always be down there. I mean, as it is, my favorite method of like reinvesting in myself is reading Terry Pratchett books or reading manga on my phone in the bathtub. So, and that was like, man, back when I was younger, manga was $10 a book, which it still kind of is. But you in our area where Joseph and I are from, libraries did not have manga. So you couldn't just go to the library and read all of some series you like. You had to buy it. Or pirate it, but anyway, I'm glad there are good options now for a lot of people. I know not every area is pro comics, but someday maybe. I mean, it's just a form of literature. It's like people saying like novels are a waste of blah 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 blah. Fiction is a waste of blah blah. It'll make you stupid. I don't believe that, by the way. I'm just, like to me it's the same because it's an art form that uses illustration and literature together. So to act like it's real subversive in a negative way is foolish. Hey, Callie, welcome back. Aw, thank you, Tanner. Y'all have a good evening. 10 month using ink. What? Sorry, I'm having trouble parsing that sentence. I think because I'm tired. While I like making art, I am always ready for it to be over so I can have the finished piece. You know what I mean? Like, I like making art, but I like being finished with making art and having it done more than I sometimes enjoy the process, especially when my hand starts to hurt. Because I'm like looking at it and I'm like, oh, I only have 2 panels left. Yay! Of this page. And then I only have 2 pages left of this 4 Coma comic, so I'm glad. It'll be nice to have volume 2 like legit finished and be able to send it out to people. And I would really like to have a book launch, and I don't know how I'm going to do that because I want to do it as safely as possible. I don't know, maybe we could like hide goodies in some of the little libraries around here or something. I'm glad to hear you feel that way, Kelly. It's nice to see people have like a good relationship with their parents. Seriously. And you should tell them you feel that way. They should hear that. They need to know they're the best. I'm sure that would make them really happy. I know if we had a kid and my kid told me I was the best, I think I'd cry a little, like good cry, you know? Of course, I'm the sucker who, like, when my students used to try to hug me, it was always made my day, I guess, because, you know, to know that they enjoyed my art class so much and that it meant a lot to them and that they were happy to be there, that I was able to make a learning environment that was fun and they didn't want to leave. Told me that I was doing a good job. Well, we all do. We've all done some bad stuff in the past. I mean, I'm sure your parents have made mistakes and you've forgiven them, and your friends have made mistakes and you've forgiven them. You know, that's part of being human, is making mistakes and trying to learn from it and trying to become a better person. You know, you can't grow if you never make mistakes. Well, it can be hard to always be 100% happy with your parents, too, you know? That's part of growing up to an extent, is, you know, you're trying to push boundaries and your parents are either, you know, allowing you to push the boundaries a little bit or telling you no, you got to do it their way. That's hard when you're getting older and you want to have more independence. That was a lot of my fights with my mom as a teenager. Was I felt like she didn't really let me have any room to do stuff, and my friends were allowed to do a lot of stuff I wasn't allowed to do, and then they'd make fun of me. I always tried to make my art classes a very welcome kind of environment. You know, a place where if you were having a bad day at school, you could come to art class and just kind of forget about it for a while. I mean, of course I wanted them to learn, but I also, after you've been taking homeschool classes all day or you were at school all day, because I had all kinds of different students, or even if you were working, because I also taught through community ed, so I would teach adults sometimes too. I always tried to keep in mind that the fact that they were in my classes was extra. You know what I mean? Like, they were doing that because they wanted to be there, and that it needed to be a good experience for everybody. I always worked hard to make sure it was as welcoming and enjoyable an environment as possible. I mean, the thing is, in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, which is about how long most of my classes lasted, they were either 6 week or 8 weeks, 8 classes. You are not going to go from like absolutely not knowing anything about drawing to being a master artist. So my goal wasn't to take people who were not very happy with their art and make them 100% happy. My goal was to have an art class where they enjoyed themselves and they could see the positives in their art, and basically just create like a positive foundation for them to go and take other art classes or take a different art class with me or make art on their own and enjoy it. And part of that was, well, when I was in college, particularly while I was at SCAD, I had classes that were just so, some of the teachers were like so just mean. Not just about critiques, but just like mean all the time, would make fun of their students, stuff like that. Just, stuff that I know now is like really inappropriate. But at the time, they told us, well, if you can't deal with this, you ought to just drop out, right? And it really burnt me out, and it made me hate making art, and it made me kind of hate making comics for a while, and I didn't want to do that to anybody else. Good night, Web Light. Have a good evening. Oh, yeah, I get that, Kelly. Yeah. And I really appreciate that you always apologize for it. That takes a lot of maturity, to see that like you'd behaved in a way that wasn't really you, and then to apologize for that. Your parents must be very proud of you. Last panel. You can tell my hands are getting kind of tired because the grass is getting kind of sloppy. But that's okay. I will either be cool with it tomorrow when I make corrections, or I'll fix it. We all kind of mature at our own rate. When I was 19, I was super ready to be out of the house. But if I had needed more time, my parents would have given me more time, which I appreciate. I mean, there were so many times as an adult, my mom was like, if you need to move back in, it's okay, nothing wrong with that. And it's like, all right, it's nice to know you have a soft place to fall. You have a crew to support you. Some people have that crew through biological family. Some people have that crew in adopted family. Some people have that crew in their friends. But it's nice to have people in your corner who, even if you have nothing to offer at the time, they still support you and believe in you and want what's best for you. Ooh, Kelly, I'm so sorry that a teacher said that to you. That is crazy inappropriate of them to have said that. They don't know that. Not for a fact. Nobody knows that except you. Only you get to determine who you're going to be. Oh, man. Well, sometimes if you practice more, it gets better. And then sometimes you just have to embrace the wobbles. Or find some artists you like who have a wobbly art style and figure out how they're using that to make great art. Like, oh my goodness, Jonan Vasquez, right? The guy who is like the conceiver of Invader Zim, but he also did Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and a few other comics like Squee. He has kind of a wobbly art style, and maybe there's stuff in his art style that might be inspiring for you. Well, regarding living at home in your 20s and 30s, the housing market is really expensive. Like, to rent is really expensive. There are cities like Nashville where they don't want to have affordable housing built. So unless you just have money on a rental, where are you going to live? There are also people who, like our parents' age, who built these fairly large multi-room homes, and if you move out, they have all these empty rooms. And then there are also still people who can live at home and they contribute to the household to the household good. They cook, they help clean, they contribute money. So they're not just living off their parents, they're bringing something to the table. Or even there are also people with special needs who need more time or who need more care or they need help with their medications, who need to live at home. So it's real judgmental for people to just assume they know why somebody needs to live at home. I didn't mean to make it sound like I was looking down on people who need to do that or do that or choose to do that for whatever reason. It would have been bad for me because while I love my mom a lot and we spend a lot of time together and we generally get along really well, we also need our separate space sometimes. And living with my mom would not have been good for our relationship. Yeah, and it does take some people a little bit longer. And some people function better living with a roommate or living with like their significant other or even living with like an older brother or sister too. Like I have depression issues, and when I live on my own, the depression really kind of eats me alive, you know? So I really benefit from living with somebody else and having someone else invested in my life. Yeah, and some people like to live together. That's right. Some people like they like their family. They enjoy being with their family and they still want to be around. And you know, India is right about saying everybody has a different definition of success, and chasing after somebody else's definition really will make you very sad. And that's something I have to struggle with because what I decided success looked like is something that is honestly not necessarily within my power to achieve. And I'm having to kind of reevaluate what is important to me and what my goals are and what success really should look like for me. You know, I never wanted to be like rich. Like that was never, I didn't want like fancy cars or anything like that. But there's still even sometimes modest dreams, if they're depending on other people's opinion of you or your popularity or impressing someone you don't know, that can be something that can be out of reach. So that doesn't make you not a good person. It doesn't make you someone who doesn't deserve love or good things. It just means it was something you were not able to achieve by yourself. That's right, you need to be you. And it's okay if you need to change your dreams or if you reevaluate and you decide you want to do something else. I mentioned earlier in the stream, you know, there are people who come into comics who were animators or were illustrators. Those are people who kind of reevaluated their dreams and they fell in love with something new or they decided to try something new. Nothing wrong with that. There's people who go back to school for all kinds of different reasons. I mean, there's some people who go and get their GED as adults, you know, and that's great. That takes a lot of courage and a lot of determination to be able to do that. And there are people who go back to college or trade school or vocational school as adults because they found something else that they were called to do or made them happy. I appreciate that, Indy. That really means a lot to me. What should you draw first? The character, then the background, or the background, then the character? Nah, BJ, I did miss that. I'm sorry. Thank you for asking again. So when I'm inking or drawing a panel, I draw what is most important at the time. So if I'm showing like a background element that's important, I'm going to draw that first and then draw the characters around that. If I'm showing a character or an expression, then I draw that first and then I draw the background. And the reason I do it like that is my hand wears down over time. I mean, everybody's does. And sometimes focusing on the thing that's the most important, that's going to be the thing that if you mess it up, people are going to notice. So I want to give it my best. I want to give it my freshest. Although sometimes I'll start with whatever is harder. So like in this panel, Kara is not necessarily more important than Pancake, but she's in the foreground and Pancake's in the background, so I'm just working kind of front to back. But I mean, experiment with, you know, your order and figure out what works best for you. Because it might vary for you. I don't want to pretend like my way is the only way to do it. The one true golden road of comics. Who is even the older one sometimes? Oh, your brother. He's a squishy boy. And you know, that's another point too. Like, ooh, sounds like Bowie got into something he shouldn't. He fell. Sounds like he was on the counter. You know, there are so many artists, and I'm definitely guilty of this, where you'll draw something and you'll be like, oh, it doesn't look very good. And you'll say that out loud, like, or online. And you know, there are people who would be happy to draw as well as you did that thing you didn't like. They would love to be that good. And when you put yourself down like that, it's very discouraging to other people. And it's hard to shake it. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, I could draw this better. I will do this better another time. Or I could draw this better. I would like to redraw it. Like, that has more of a positive spin. But there's so many people who, when they post their art online, they start insulting their own work, I think, because they're hoping someone else will come in and compliment them and boost their self-esteem. But I have seen it have a very negative effect on other artists or people who look up to their work. So no matter how I feel about something I've drawn, whether or not I think I could do it better, or, you know, it's really not as good as I would like, I try not to be down on my art publicly, because I don't want other people to see me talking trash about myself and then feel like their art is bad, you know? And some people actually have taken that the complete other way, and they think I'm a huge jerk because I'm not sitting there putting down my art. They think I'm super full of myself. But it really is, it's not a very healthy way to think about your art. You should always try to, if you don't like how you did something, instead of putting yourself down, you should try to figure out how to make it work for you, or what you could do better in the future and how you would do it better in the future. You know, own it. Take some pride and make it into a positive situation if you can. And I also don't want someone to see me putting my work down and think that their work is bad. Almost done! Whoop whoop! Heck yeah, congratulations, Indy! On your graduation. That took a lot. Going back to school is not easy at any age. So that took a lot of courage. All right, I am almost done with this page, which is good because my stomach is saying it is dinner time, girl. So what I'm going to do is I'll finish this page up and go get something to eat, and then on Instagram Live, because I'm still kind of playing around with it, I will ink my Lilliputian Living illustration for today. So I haven't decided yet if I want to go ahead and draw tomorrow's first and then ink it, or if I want to ink it and then draw tomorrow's. I'll probably decide that after I eat a snack. But if you're an Instagram kind of person, it'll let you know when it goes live. If you were full of yourself, who would you be full of? That is an excellent way to think about it. Very much healthier than... And you know, also the sort of people who think other people are full of themselves just because they don't put themselves down all the time should maybe reconsider their own relationship with their work and how they feel about themselves and why they think someone not dissing their own art means that person has no humility. But I also always kind of felt like if you don't like your own work, then it's hard to convince other people to like it. You know what I mean? Like you gotta believe in yourself, and then you can convince other people to believe in you. You can't always be reliant on other people to build you up. One, because frankly, people do get tired of that. You know, they get tired of always having to lift the same person up for the same things. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I know some other artists who are always putting their own work down, and they basically expect other people to praise them. They can't seem to find anything they like about their own work, even though their work is great. And then they'll like tweet about how no one ever compliments them. And people do get tired of that kind of stuff, you know? So, but if you can manage to like your own work most of the time, you don't have to like it 100% of the time, everybody has bad days, then, you know, you will be able to like, you'll find it in yourself to like other people's work and to be able to praise and compliment other people for their work, and then they'll want to have that relationship with you. They'll want to compliment your work and praise your work. I would be good if you... Yeah, I think your mom is probably a pretty good mom, Kelly. Like, I can afford to be nice and easygoing because I'm not responsible for anybody but myself and my cat right now. When we have kids, I'm going to have to be tough sometimes, which is going to be hard because I'm not really that kind of a person. But it's very sweet of you to say that. But I still think your mom is probably a better mom for you than I would be able to be. Just because she's your mom. She's already done such a good job so far. Give her some credit. Okay. All right. Yay! That's a healthy way to think about it, Indy. To just put it out there. And then, you know, regarding likes on Instagram, like a lot of people just get into like scroll mode where they're seeing it, but they're not remembering to tap anything. Sometimes you just gotta say, hey, I did a swag-tastic job on this, and I shall proceed to not shut up about it. That is yes, Hema, yes. Okay, guys. Oh, man, no problem, BJ. All right, so I think, let me adjust the camera. I think we're about done with this tonight. It is 9:01. Ooh, it got late, y'all. There's things that I'm going to fix on this tomorrow, but I had a lot of fun hanging out and inking comics and chatting with you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening and a good Friday, and I will hopefully see you guys on Saturday evening with a watercolor stream. Since I am collaborating with Kino Kitsune, I am not super sure about the time yet, but you guys can check the community tab on YouTube for an update on the time. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you guys again on Saturday. No, Pancake, don't eat her. Another healthy attitude. Yeah, as long as you like it, that's what matters the most. That's what's going to keep you going through thick or thin. All right, y'all, have a good evening.